in God's name? Who goes there?
Devilish night, isn't it, Mr. Harrington?
Carswell? What have you done?
What was promised. You were allowed 7 days.
No. No.
I'd run if I were you.
No!
My word. Dunning, is that you?
Monty, my dear fellow. How are you?
Well, under the circumstances, I'm still taken aback over the whole business. Did you know Harrington?
Only as a colleague, but we were pleasant enough when our paths crossed. As a matter of fact, I saw him no more than 2 weeks ago. He seemed
bothered.
Then you saw the change in him, too.
Yes, he wasn't well in the days before he died. There was a book.
A History of Demons.
Why, yes. How did you know?
He had a copy of that dreadful tome in hand when I met him. I remarked on the volume as I've just submitted a critique of it myself.
You mustn't.
I'm sorry?
Don't publish your article. Leave it alone. Forget all about that book.
I'm afraid it's too late. The article's already gone to print. What's come over you, Monty?
I think we should have a chat, Edward. But this isn't the time or place. Do you have some time after the service? Some lunch, perhaps?
Yes, of course. Monty, you've hardly touched your meal.
My mind keeps turning back to Harrington, poor fellow. Do you know how he died?
Yes, some sort of accident near his home, wasn't it?
Yes. He was crushed to death by a falling tree on the road behind his property.
Oh, that's terrible luck.
Absolutely dreadful. At least he would have died instantly. But I don't think chance had anything to do with it. I believe Harrington's death had something to do with the scathing review that he wrote about that book.
You think he was murdered?
I think that if he had never written that article, he would be with us today.
Then you do think it was murder?
Perhaps. Or something else.
Monty, are you suggesting that he was cursed?
I'm gravely serious, Edward. I believe that whatever happened to John Harrington was not the result of an unfortunate accident, rather a premeditated, inexplicable occurrence. What's more, Harrington knew himself that he was going to die, precisely on the day and hour.
Perhaps he had an unhealthy obsession with his mortality and got lucky. No one has that insight.
No one, you say? How much have you learned about Magnus Carswell in your researches?
Oh, not much. Aside from being the author of A History of Demons and several essays on the subject of the occult, there's very little known about him. Quite frankly, I think the filthy right speaks for itself. I'll give him this. I have never read so offensive a volume. The vivid descriptive passages on satanic rites and sacrifices, scenes of violence and depravity, written as if he believed every word. Well, I'd be lying if I told you that it didn't get under my skin.
Yes, well, enough of that. The less I know about that text, the better. Carswell is somewhat of an enigma. He is laird of an old abbey in Warwickshire, which apparently has an unsavoury reputation of its own, dating back centuries. At one time, he was a professor at Oxford, a scholar of the black arts, before he was thrown out amidst some sort of scandal. He's persistent. Somehow he caught wind of Harrington's piece before it ever went to print, and hounded my office to cancel it. In retrospect, I only wish I had.
My God, Monty. You really do believe that Carswell had something to do with Harrington's death? Have you gone to the police?
And told them what? That Carswell put a hex on John Harrington and that's how he died?
They would have laughed at you.
Harrington laughed it off at first. But his tone changed when he soon believed that Carswell had indeed been somehow responsible for a series of strange events.
What sort of strange events?
Edward, John Harrington was convinced that he was being haunted and hunted.
What, in Blazes?
Someone's let in a raven. A jet black raven. It's fallen at your feet, Edward. Dead.
I know what you're thinking, Monty. I can see it in your face. There's a perfectly rational explanation for what just happened in there. Ah, here we go. Cabby!
The whole thing is unsettling, Edward, and I encourage you to drop it. Perhaps your article will go unnoticed. Perhaps this is all an unpleasant coincidence, or perhaps you will heed your old editor.
Good day, gentlemen. We're both headed eastwards, driver. You first, Monty. Let's get you home and rested.
Mr. Dunning, pardon me. I believe these are your gloves, sir. You left them at the table.
Oh, why, so they are. Thank you. Monty, what is it? You look as if you've seen a ghost.
That man, just now.
No, the concierge from the club?
I could be mistaken. I must have been mistaken. But no, I'm certain it must have been.
Oh, Monty, who did you see?
That was no concierge, Edward. It was Carswell.
Where am I? What is this strange place? The Raven. You're dead, my friend.
We're all dead here, Edward.
John Harrington. Is that you?
I was given 7 days. How many do you have?
I don't understand.
Life is such ignorant bliss until you learn about all those terrible things that lie just outside of our dimension, waiting to crawl in through the cracks. I've come to know so much since I've been here.
Here? Look, where are we?
Come. I'd like you to meet some new friends of mine.
John, those strange, robed figures. Who are they?
Shh. We don't want to disturb the offering.
An offering to whom?
Their names would mean nothing to you.
John. What are they offering? My God. My God! Harrington! Harrington! Harrington, wait! Where are you?
I'm afraid Mr. Harrington has an appointment with the pit.
Carswell.
You're allowed 3 days.
3 days? What do you mean, 3 days? Carswell! What? The door.
Good. You're at home.
Monty, what time is it?
Symbols.
Symbols.
Were you given anything yesterday? A book or slip of paper with a series of strange symbols on it?
No, not that I know of. Look, what's all this about?
I've had a chance to read over some notes that Harrington left behind. I couldn't sleep last night. My mind was racing. From what I gather, Harrington discovered that someone, well, presumably Carswell, or an associate of his, had slipped a piece of paper into his jacket pocket, unbeknownst to him. On this paper was scrawled several runic symbols, along with the words, "You are allowed 7 days." John believed that this was the source of the hex. He was dead in a week.
7 days. My coat's over here. No, nothing in the pockets.
What about your gloves? The ones you left at the table last night?
They're with my hat. Here it is. Folded and tucked into one of the fingers.
3 days. My God, Edward. You are allowed 3 days.
These symbols are most odd, gentlemen. Most odd indeed.
Are you able to make any sense of them, Professor?
None whatsoever. Upon first glance, I would suggest that this was gibberish, a novice's idea of a runic alphabet, and yet there are certain nuances that might suggest otherwise. But whatever it is, it's a language we've never seen before.
An old language, Professor?
A language that predates the Elder Fuvak runes, which we know date back almost 2 millennia. Most fascinating.
Is there anything you can derive from this?
An enthusiast guess is the best I can offer you, Mr. Dunning. But I do find this one symbol here to be most curious. An image almost reminiscent of ancient cave hieroglyphs discovered in the Americas. Less a symbol, rather a direct representation of some sort of great horned beast. How did you find these symbols, Mr. Dunning?
It's very important that we find a translation for this script, Professor Gayton. Is there anything more that you can do to help us?
I'm afraid my knowledge is exhausted, Mr. Rhodes. But there might be someone else who can help you. most remarkable woman who once delivered a most sensational lecture on the subject of ancient occult scripture. Of course, she takes all of this superstitious nonsense quite seriously, but she might have some insight as to the nature of these very strange runes.
Yes,
This is Madame Somnambula's residence.
yes. Can I help you, gentlemen?
We would like to speak with Madame. Is she at home?
Do you have an appointment?
I'm afraid we don't.
Madam is very busy today. I'm sorry, but if you don't have an appointment...
Look, this is very important. We just want her to see...
Perhaps this was a bad idea, Monty. We should just come
It's
back.
all right, Freda. Let them in.
Thank you. Madame Somnambula?
Welcome to my home, Mr.
Rhodes. And this is Mr. Dunning.
A pleasure.
Madam, is something wrong?
I know why you have come here, Mr. Dunning. I can see the shadow of the beast on your heels.
I'm sorry.
Please, join me in the sitting room. Let the glow of the candle bathe you in the light of sanctum. Within this light you are safe, but do not fall back into the shadows.
What was that?
We are peering through a portal, and those entities that await just beyond are closer to the earth now than ever before. There is something that is coming for you, Mr. Dunning, crossing over from the dark realm.
What is it?
A demon.
Demon? Well, that's nonsense. Look, this is all hocus pocus.
You are brave, Mr. Dunning, but you are not a fool. Already you have felt its presence. Your aura is stained with the color of your fear. Was it you who conjured the demon?
No. There is a man called Carswell.
Oh, yes. This is a name they know all too well. It is a very dangerous man that you have crossed, Mr. Dunning.
So I'm beginning to see. I believe he gave me this.
Curse.
We believe that a similar message was passed to an associate of ours, who subsequently died under mysterious circumstances.
Indeed, this is a very old language, gentlemen. The language of the ancients. Herr Carswell is a most masterful conjurer. This script is a mark that condemns you. A demon has been summoned to claim your soul within the time allowed.
3 days. Of which only one remains.
Surely there must be some way to break this spell.
All is not lost. If you can return this scripture to Carswell before the demon comes, the curse will be broken.
And if I can't get to Carswell in time,
Then it is not only your physical being, but your soul that is doomed. Godspeed, Mr. Dunning.
Take heart, Edward. We now know how to end this.
yes, but it won't be easy, Monty. You can be certain that Carswell will be on his guard.
No doubt. But between the two of us, we must force the blackguard to rescind the hex. Either way, it's too late in the evening for us to travel to Warwickshire now. There won't be a train until morning. We'll go to the Abbey first thing tomorrow.
Tomorrow. The final day.
Well, at least we've made it so far as Warwickshire.
From what I gather, the Abbey isn't very far. But in the interests of time, we're best not to do it on foot. Here's a cab.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Lufford Abbey. Do you know it?
I do, sir. Although it doesn't see many visitors. Have you come to see Mr. Carswell, then?
We have.
Well, I'm afraid you've just missed him, gentlemen. I brought him down about an hour ago. Said he was headed to Dover, then onwards across the Channel on business. That's his train leaving right there. A very peculiar type, that Mr. Carswell.
My God, Monty. Then we're too late.
Not necessarily. If we can make it back to the city, we might be able to get to him before he transfers.
Easy, take it easy, girl. I don't know what the place is to come over her. Just if something spooked her. Steady, steady.
Careful, Monty. Careful.
I can't control her. Get out of the way. Oh!
Edward, are you all right?
Monty, watch out.
Oh!
Well, Mr. Dunning, I didn't expect to see you here. You look rather the worse for wear. Did you encounter a spot of bother on your travels?
Might I join you, Carswell?
Oh, I don't see why not. But don't you have an appointment elsewhere, Mr. Dunning?
You've proved your point, Carswell. Now call it off.
Oh, I'm afraid I can't do that, Mr. Dunning, not without making a great personal sacrifice. And I'm not prepared to do that. But as we have a little time before we reach our final destinations, tell me, how does it feel to know the shadow of death is so close? The fear must be exquisite.
I'm resigned to my fate, Carswell. Are you not concerned how you will be judged at the end of your days?
I have served my master well.
Who? Who do you serve?
I think you already know the answer, Mr. Dunning.
Carswell, I'm a desperate man. Is there anything I can do to persuade you to change your mind?
No, I assure you there isn't. But I must confess that I take a certain delight in seeing you squirm. Don't worry, it will be over soon. Ah, it's the end of the line, so to speak, Mr. Dunning.
Here, let me help you with your bag.
No, I don't think so. I'll manage that. That would be rather careless of me, should you attempt to pass something back.
Dover, gentlemen. Might I see your tickets, please?
Certainly.
Thank you, sir. And yours?
Here we are.
Very good, sir.
You cannot run from it. It will find you, and it will kill you. That is when your torment will truly begin. Now, if you forgive me, I have a boat to catch. Goodbye, Mr. Dunning.
Your ticket, sir?
Well played, Monty. Is it done?
Simple sleight of hand. Mr. Carswell will soon discover it was not his ticket that was returned to him. How do you feel?
Reprieved? I think we've done it, Monty. There's a heaviness that is lifted. I can't explain it.
Yes. Well, perhaps the least said about this whole business, the better.
hope the cabin is to your liking, Mr. Coswell.
Yes, this will do quite well, thank you. Just set my case down there. Here's something for your trouble.
Thank you, sir. Oh, I think something fell from your pocket, Mr. Coswell.
My train ticket. Thank you, Porter. No. No. The scripture. It can't be. I was careful. Not here. Not now. Show me mercy. I've served you well. No. No. No! No!